and welcome to day 4 of PETS 2022. A special welcome to DG Sonia, and I will give you a few minutes once we finished all the housekeeping activities to share some new insights into our exciting district conference coming up. DG Leslie, PDG is on the call, other district leaders on the call. A very special welcome. Our regional membership director, Audley, is also with us this morning, and he will be part of one of the discussion leaders in our panel this morning. So welcome all. To our president and secretary-elects, I know you must have other things to do. I'm glad that this Saturday morning that you chose to spend some time with us, because you all know how important the session is on membership. Members is in fact the lifeblood of your club, and most clubs thrive once their members are in fact engaged. Today we will hear from two of our fellow Rotarians, PGD David and RMO Audley, who will lead a discussion and engage you. They've already indicated to me they will be engaging you along the way in the area of membership. We are seeking to take membership to the next level. These two individuals are extremely passionate about membership, getting in new members, attracting new members, and also to keep them happy as well. So be prepared for an engaging and very interactive session. Just on some protocols, this morning, the support team is ready to play its part to ensure we have a smooth sailing session. Please remember to select your language. At the bottom of your screen, there is a globe to select either English or French. The session is in fact being recorded, so you have been muted as you enter the room. Stay muted if you need to interact as so desired by the discussion leaders. You raise your hand in the ICOM Zoom and we will unmute you. One of our team members will unmute you. Please place your questions in caps in the chat box, because we do have a segment to address questions. As we commence today's session, the usual, I like to ask DGE Leslie to kick us off with some opening remarks.
Good morning all, and welcome to PETS Day 4. Good to see we have good participants, good numbers so far. Welcome to our past district governors, our Audley Knight, our special presenter today, along with PDD David. Welcome, sir. Good to have you here. To all our participating members, to our district team, our district training team, welcome all. As Trainer Liz indicated, membership is a very important pillar in Rotary. Without members, there's no Rotary. That's the long and short of it. So it is good that we have with us the experts. I don't think we'll get any better. We have the experts in Audley and David with us, presenting, engaging you in discussions. And I want to remind you that our president-elect is also very passionate about membership. She is concerned that we must provide that care and comfort for our members. President-elects in your clubs, in your respective clubs, you must make sure that your members are always welcome, they are comfortable, they are free to voice their opinions, be it critical and supportive. Every word, everything from every word from everybody counts. It's important to be efficient running and making sure that the club is on a proper footing so that we could strengthen the clubs in the district. So she even tells us that it's not like it was before. We are going through changing times and we must retool and upgrade ourselves to adapt ourselves to what is happening now. So we have many avenues, many possibilities of membership in the region, in the district, and we must embrace those things. So thank you very much, and again, warm welcome, and my special DG. So great to see you here. I know you had a late night last night. Good to see you here, and we look forward to some inspiring words from you just before we start. Thank you.
All right, thank you, DGE, and I like to ask our amazing district governor to update us on what is happening with the conference in Barbados. DG Sonia?
Good morning, District 7030 and beyond. Welcome to Saturday for 3 weeks, 4 weeks and counting, 4 weeks and 3 days, 4 weeks less 3 days to District Conference in Barbados. The team is hard at work. We started meeting from 6 o'clock this morning. The WhatsApps have been going and the team is ready. So just to bring you up to date quickly, thank you so much, DGE Leslie, and of course, District Trainer Liz, for allowing me just a few minutes of your time today. Those of you who were at the President's Lounge last night, awesome, awesome time. And those who missed it, shame on you. This was the ground where we shared some stuff, and guess what? Charles is going to host the rest. He is going to be the one that's coordinating and getting us to meet more regularly during the rest of this year, and I hope beyond. So listen out for more President's Lounge activities. It's for presidents, presidents-elect, secretaries, secretaries-elect, district leaders, and definitely it's not a place to miss. The drinks are, usually the drinks are going to be on A.G. Lathan, because he is the man. He got a very big bar bill. So listen out for that. So let me talk a little bit about District Conference, and so that for those of you who have not signed up, there's still opportunity. We are going to be extending. We're not going to close the registrations as previously mentioned on the 15th of March. We're just going to leave it open for a little bit longer, just so that people get more comfortable, and if they want to join, they're able to register. We have also agreed that the rate will not change after the 15th of March. So you all know what's happening and what's in store for the presidents-elect and the secretaries-elect on April the 7th. So I'm not going to really go through that with you. I'm going to talk about, did I say February? I meant April. April 8th, April 7th, April 8th, gosh. April 8th, we start pretty early in the morning with our opening ceremony. And yes, for those of you who are asking and whose clubs are asking, we are going to have a virtual component. Listen out for that information over the next few days in terms of what it's going to be to register for the virtual component. We'll be streaming live the daytime activities at the conference. All the presentations, you will be able to log into Zoom and be able to catch all that's happening. The team is working on ensuring that we have, if you're not there in person, you're going to be there and be able to be a part of what's happening on the stage. So we start at 8:30 with the opening ceremony. Lots of surprises in store there. So I'm not giving away any secrets. There's too much stuff happening in that opening ceremony for me to even want to share one thing. Because if I share one, I'm going to have to share all, and that's going to spoil the surprise for everybody. So opening ceremony, we have in the evening an all Bajan beach bash, beach extravaganza, beach home hospitality event. So bring your lime-in clothes and let's hit the beach for a great evening. Early next morning, Saturday, April 9th, will be our walk for polio. So in our district, we have been extremely fortunate not to have had any cases of polio for a very long time. But our population, our constituencies forget all about polio. So we want to remember, we want to bring them back into focus on polio and eradication. So we're going to be having a walk for polio. We're going to have some t-shirts on sale, which mark the event. But if you don't want to buy a t-shirt, wear a red shirt. I'm just asking you to wear red. Our shirts will be red for the occasion, as polio is a red color. And then we go back for a 9 o'clock start to our day. And again, we're going to have the usual lots of projects from around the district, English, French, and Dutch projects that are going to be showcased, projects that really touch your heart, projects that really show the impact of our contributions to the Rotary Foundation and why we are who we are because of the Rotary Foundation. We'll be having presentations, of course, by past Rotary International Director Barry Razin. We're going to have past Rotary International President Barry Razin. We're going to be having a presentation by the membership, the Director of Membership for RI, Brian King. So you hear where we're focused on, right? The foundation and our foundation dollars, because we need to make sure that we can continue to do projects in our district with the foundation money that our members contribute, to be allowing us to have those district grants that are so key to ensuring that clubs get to do impactful projects within their communities. So Barry is going to be talking about that. Brian is going to be talking about the essence of Rotary and its members and why growing members is the future, and the fact that we cannot just feel that it's okay to have 13 members and 13 members can do everything. We have to get on with it. So Brian will just be enforcing what PDG David is going to speak on today. And then, of course, we have past Rotary International Director John Smarge on our Houston convention and what's going to be happening, and hopefully he'll get us to sign up. Our sign up at convention has been a little slow. We had budgeted for a few people, but we're almost at only a quarter of our budget. So hopefully as things open up, we can get to Houston. Also on the Saturday, we'll be having our business session where we'll be talking resolutions and the business of the district. But I know that we're all waiting on what's happening in Grenada next year for district conference. So the Grenada team is going to be presenting on the conference as well over there. On Saturday night, we're calling it a closing celebration. We're celebrating the fact that we're back in person after missing two district conferences. So we'll be back in person after the last time we met was in Guadeloupe. And so we're just gonna be under the stars in an all-white masquerade in the evening. It's gonna be food, music, fellowship, and everything, colleagues and friends, everything will be with all the COVID protocols being taken into consideration. The reason we're having this conference as a fully vaccinated conference is because we want to ensure that everybody is safe. Yes, vaccinated people can get COVID, but we're going to do everything in our power to ensure that while you're here with us, that we've got you covered. Masks, sanitization stations, everything is going to be placed, social distancing. So all the protocols will be in place. Also, for those of you who are coming, we're going to ask that when you register to get your bags and so on, that you indicate what type of test you need to have done and the date you need to have it done for your onward travel back home, so that we can make sure we have those facilities ready for you. Also, of course, please remember that we're going to be picking you up at the airport. So people need to indicate on their registrations where they're staying and when they're coming in and when they're leaving. The team needs that information to ensure that we effectively look after our guests on island. The 3 Rotary clubs in Barbados are working together to ensure that you have the best experience that you can have in Barbados at this time. And we look forward to welcoming you to our shores from April the 7th. What session is being done on April the 7th? That's the PETS session. Presidents-elect and secretaries-elect sessions are being done on April the 7th in the afternoon. But that's for this team to talk to you about. So thanks so much, Liz. Thanks, Leslie, for having me this morning. Good morning to everyone. I am going to be listening. I am enjoying the PET sessions thus far and looking forward to seeing you all here in Barbados, whether it's virtually or in person. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, DG Sonia. I think a lot of that information in terms of questions were buzzing around in people's heads. So I think you've really clarified and certainly inspired. I'm thinking that with all that beach activity that is happening and all those things we talked about last night in the lounge, I think you will get some more persons signing up to come to a conference in Barbados. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining us as well, because I know you're very busy and I know what it takes to plan a conference. So thank you for being here. All right, so just to respond to Annabella, the PETS in Barbados is going to start at 2 o'clock. It is basically to look at budgeting, which is on your schedule, and we do have a beach exercise as well, networking beach exercise, where we did ask persons to bring a bottle of rum of their choice from their country. So that is what will be happening, and it's also going to be broadcast virtually as well. So persons who are not coming to Barbados will not miss out that activity on the 7th as well. All right, so let's move along to introduce our discussion leaders this morning. Is in fact one of our district trainers committee members, Joelle. So can I ask Joelle to introduce our distinguished panelists this morning? Joelle?
Merci Lise. Bonjour à tous, DJ Sonia, les district gouverneurs. Alors j'ai le plaisir de vous présenter ce matin nos 2 panélistes, PDG David et le responsable régional des adhésions, Audley Knight. Alors, concernant le PDG David, il a rejoint le Rotary en 1978. Il a été président du Rotary Club de la Barbade, gouverneur de district du district 70-30 durant le centenaire 2004-2005 et président fondateur du conseil du gouverneur du district 70-30. David a été à l'avant-garde de l'assistance régionale en cas de catastrophe dans les Caraïbes de 1982 jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Et il est actuellement président du comité régional des catastrophes. Il a servi dans de nombreux domaines au niveau du district et de la zone, représentant notamment le district 70-30 au Conseil de la législation de 2013, membre du comité de nomination des administrateurs du RI, assistant du président du Rotary International, Barry Wessing, et de feu, Sam Ogowi, et il est le président sortant de la commission effective du Rotary International. David a reçu le prix de service méritoire, ainsi que le prix du Rotary International, Service Above Self. Lui et Donna sont tous les deux des donateurs majeurs de la Fondation Rotary. David est un évaluateur immobilier professionnel et un juge de paix. Alors, concernant le RMO Audley, qui a commencé son parcours Rotary en 2006, qui est jamaïcain de naissance, Il a occupé plusieurs postes au Rotary Club de Montégobet, dont celui de président en 2009 et de gouverneur adjoint. Il est actuellement membre du Rotary Club de North Corp à Kennesaw, donc à Atlanta, Georgie, aux États-Unis, dans le district 6900, la région où il réside maintenant. Audley, qui est un expert financier qualifié, a rejoint le Rotary International en septembre 2019 en tant que responsable régional de l'effectif, prenant en charge les zones 33 et 34. Merci.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Mavis, for translating as well. All right, now I did mention at the beginning that we will have two discussion leaders. They've just been introduced, and this is how we will flow today. Today I'll be assisted in the discussion panel by Leah, with PP Leah. Leah will assist me in starting off with some questions. So PP Leah, could I ask you to commence this panelist discussion? And remember, for the best experience, you can switch to speaker version so that you can see and hear clearly the person who is speaking. So over to you, Leah, to start us off.
Thanks, Liz. Good morning, everyone. Special good morning to our panelists. Both of these gentlemen have a wealth of knowledge, as you heard during their introduction, but that really does not cover everything they know. So we're hoping this panel will touch on even a quarter of their knowledge and help it to rub off on those of us who are most in need of it. Our first question goes to both panelists, but I'll ask RMO Audley to respond first. Many clubs still focus on membership attendance as against membership engagement as a means of determining a Rotarian's interest in the club. In your experience, Audley, which is more important? Or are they equally important? And please explain why this is so.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining. It's a wonderful, wonderful Saturday morning, and I'm here in Kennesaw, Georgia. So again, thanks for that. Outside is about, well, 0 degrees, so it's a little chilly. That question between engagement and attendance, well, I'm actually also, as you've heard, I'm on staff with Rotary International. So let me give you a somewhat of an RI response first. The formal requirement for attendance have been removed from Rotary International for quite a few years now. But if your club still requires attendance, that's okay. And especially if the district also requires attendance, that's okay, because also remember, clubs are autonomous. But so we are more looking at engagement. And if you have a very strong Rotarian that just cannot make the meetings for whatever reason, family or work, but they're at every project, they're at every social, they are the ones carrying the buckets when they're going up the hill with something, they're the ones putting up the tent. That in my mind carries a lot more weight than the attendance piece. And again, if your club requires attendance, that's okay. But the engagement piece, you know, that person that's there at every board meeting, the person that is the first in line to give a donation, they're the ones putting on the polo shirt and doing the walk at the conference. That in my mind, it carries a lot more weight than the attendance piece. So that's my initial thoughts. I'm not so sure what David would think about that.
Thank you, Audley. About those buckets carrying up hills, do you personally do that? Because I have a few, just in case.
I know, and again, apart from being on staff, I've been a Rotarian, so I know exactly what that means. And for the presidents-elects that are on the call, thank you very much for taking on the wonderful challenge next year. But I'm sure your clubs don't have this where the same 10 persons do the work for the 40. That doesn't happen in your club, right? I'm sure. But it's just that those particular persons that you're always here to count on, and those are the persons that the Rotarians that happen to be on the board. Those are ones selling the raffle tickets. When something needs to be done or doing a committee to do a foundation dinner, they're there. They're the ones that carrying the beer and carrying the ice buckets. So again, for me, the level of passion and the level of engagement and the level of involvement is way more important than the formal attendance at the meeting, because the meetings are excellent. The meetings, that's where the formal part of Rotary happens. The business of the club. You'll hear a good speaker, interact with your members. But oftentimes you really get to know your fellow Rotarians at a project. Sleeves rolled up hand to hand, or driving to a PETS, or going to a PETS, or going to a conference. You really get to know your fellow Rotarians that way. So the engagement piece has a little bit more tug on my heart.
Thanks so much, Audley. PDG David, over to you. Same question. In your experience, which is more important, or are they equally important? And please explain your reason.
Yeah, well, good morning. And as Audley said, thanks to all those who have stepped up to the plate to become presidents and secretaries-elect. Welcome to the fold. I know some may be repeating, but that too is much appreciated. Maybe you enjoyed it and you were coming back for a second round. Audley said it my way as we speak, especially in terms of engagement, the buckets, the person with the buckets, and that type of work is what to me makes the Rotarian. You can we speak so much about being pinned in Rotary and becoming a member and that type of thing. So you do become a member officially when you get pinned, but when you become a Rotarian is really when you start to work. And unfortunately, if we speak of engagement as against attendance, many become the pinned Rotarians and remain that for many years, going to 100% meetings, but never actually become the engaged bucket carrying Rotarians until long after. And I think that's where the difference comes. We have, nowadays we use this word pivot. Everything talks about pivoting, but we have to pivot. There's work to be done out there. The Rotarian of 2022 is different from the Rotarian of 1982. And even if the level of commitment is the same, the way we do things and the way we are seen to do things, the way we raise money is all different. And we may now be raising the same $100 as we raised in 1982, but we may be raising it from 10 people now instead of 3 people or 2 companies in 1982. And the accountability and the transparency and how we let people know what we are doing and doing with their donations and that type of, it's completely different. So we have to rise to that challenge and become the engaged Rotarians. And as Audie said, Rotary is happy for you to run your club the way it suits your club to be run. If you are getting through that way, but that's fine. But to say that you have to be there 100%, as I always tell people, which do you prefer? Someone who is at a club 100% of the time, there every week at whatever time, sits through the meeting, says nothing, has a drink and goes home, or the one who you see maybe 60 or 70% of the time, but most Saturday mornings are engaged with a youth group or go to a special needs school on a Thursday afternoon to do so. Which do you prefer? Which really is the member? And to be honest, which of those 2 members is really enjoying being a Rotarian? That's my take on that.
Excellent insight. As expected, Liz, over to you for question 2.
Thank you, Leah. The pandemic has really pushed Rotarians out of their comfort zone. We've known that clubs were resistant to having virtual meetings, but then everybody had to go with the flow and have virtual meetings, or probably come out of as a club altogether. Do you think that based on your own interaction, both of you have had a lot of interaction within the district and outside of the district in terms of what has happened and what are some of the things that you can share with the President-elect and Secretary-elects that they can employ, some of the new techniques that you've seen that were used and successfully, explored and employed, and on persons getting more engaged and staying and being happy as a Rotarian. Because sometimes you bring persons are anticipate coming into the club and anticipate certain things, and then their expectations are diminished when they actually join the club. The pandemic has really taught us to think out of the box. So I really would like to hear first from PG David on what are some of the things that other clubs are doing within our district, outside of our district, and in your own experience that we can employ in our district to keep people engaged and attract more members to Rotary and keep them happy.
Thanks, Liz. Well, the first simple answer to that is that we have to do things differently than we are doing them now. Many clubs, and we just have to set this, set the stage for what we're going to talk about on this. Many clubs are not the same clubs that were what they were in March 2020. Now we're actually almost exactly 2 years into this as we speak, almost exactly 2 years. And some clubs have not even survived. Well, there are clubs in name only right now. Some have not been meeting in any form consistently. Some have not been engaged in any form consistently. So there's going to be a completely new leadership needed to bring these clubs back to reality, because the management and the ability now to promote a new vision for these clubs, and the leadership has to provide that vision and guide them through the process to get back to being, first of all, a club, and then to being an effective club. Because a lot of people have, it's not, it's a lot is said about being not on in Zoom and that type of thing. That may be true. That's the technological part. That may have stopped some. And we agree with that. We've seen that in many clubs that we're not able to do it. So that part is understandable. But in a lot of cases, a lot of the individual Rotarians have suffered themselves. A lot have lost their businesses. And then let's be real, a lot of them have even lost family members because of COVID. So there's going to be a completely new thrust to revitalize the club, and this is where the leadership part comes in. The incoming presidents, especially, as we seem finally to be coming out of the serious part of COVID, we seem to be getting better and better every month now. So the leaders who are taking up the challenge in July should, by then, if things continue as they are, we should be on a platform where we're trying to get back to what will probably be the standard going forward, whatever that is in July. And so there's a major change in leadership, leadership motivation that's going to be necessary from the incoming leaders. How have the clubs actually pivoted? As I said, some have had major, and Audie will speak better of this because Audie is in the field. This is what Audie does. And I must digress a little bit there. Audie has a unique perspective in that Audie was a Rotarian and a president before he became a staff member at RI. I've had the privilege of working with him, of course, there at RI, and I know some of the others who didn't have that perspective do not see things necessarily the same way that Audie picks them up. And I think that we are in a special set of zones to have Audie, because he sees things through the eyes of somebody who's been there and knows what needs to be done. So Audie sees these things daily in the different districts that he has to deal with, and will obviously have a more up-to-date on the physical things that are happening. But as a general thing, I know that membership and the clubs have had real problems in just keeping the membership together. So at this stage, I want you to understand that we have some clubs, I'm sure in the district that are very challenged. They may be existing, but they're very challenged. And there are others who have done significantly better in the COVID pandemic than anyone could have expected. So there are two sides. There's no one size fits all. But the question is the technique, and this is the real kicker. The technique that the question asks about has to fit what that club needs. There's no one size that fits all, and we should never get into the minutia of what has to be done with a club, because everyone is going to be different. So we have to rely on our presidents and secretaries and our district team to lead. And this is when I say everyone worldwide, our district teams and our RI teams or RMOs are going to be even more challenged now to assist clubs with their unique needs. And I'll hand to Audley there to speak of those needs and what changes he's seen thus far.
Before you hand over to Audley,
Sure.
First of all, I must say thank you, PG David, for introducing me to Audley, because Audley and yourself are my go-to persons when it comes to membership. And PG David, I'm glad you mentioned vision, because I think a lot of clubs in our district, and we did a survey, at least 60% of our clubs in our district does have a strategic plan. So I think now is the time to relook at that strategic plan, to reframe it, to match what is going to happen going forward. So President-elects, this is your time to relook. No strategic plan is cast in stone, and more so, we are coming out of COVID. So it's important for you to relook at that strategic plan to see how it fits your club, your culture, and refashion and reframe it to suit your membership going forward. Having said that, it's over to Audley to share his international experience with us.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I love that idea of a strategic plan. I'm hoping, I'm seeing like 25, 30 people at a time. Could I say a show of hands who are on the call who did a strategic plan or have seen it? Seen your clubs, districts, your strategic plan? The thing is, the good thing as well, and when persons think or hear of a strategic plan, they think of this massive 5-page document that needs major input. It can just be as simple as 2 or 3 pages. So I'm not so sure if the district has a sample strategic plan that you could use, but during the course of this morning, I'll put my email address in the chat, and I can also share some examples of what I've seen, like 2 or 3 different examples that might be easy for you as the president-elect just to fill in the blanks. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Liz. On the pandemic side and what we're seeing, going forward and, techniques, again, a quick show of hands, how many of you actually did hybrid meetings last year and you're going to continue hybrid meetings going into 1 July? And this hybrid meeting is just to have an option of someone who can't make it in person to join virtually. Some of the good techniques, try and keep that up if you can, especially if your location can accommodate it. That's one of the excellent techniques that we need to try and do, because that way, one, it attracts folks who can't make the meeting. It also is an excellent way to get speakers. If you're getting someone from literally on the other side of the planet to come and speak to your club on a particular issue or matter, it is awesome. The other thing that I'd love you to do as well, what we've seen as an excellent technique to engage and invigorate your members, is try and find other clubs across the Caribbean, North America, or the globe who are meeting virtually and join their meeting. So if you can, as a president-elect, start to visit a few clubs, try and do that, because we're seeing members and presidents who have done that visit other clubs. I've been sitting into clubs in South Africa, in India, in North America, and a relationship has been built that wouldn't happen if this pandemic didn't happen. And partnerships have been built. We're seeing funding flowing from different ways to do projects. So building that relationship, and this is an excellent technique to try and continue going forward. Visit other clubs, find out where they are. There's a club in Jamaica that started a WhatsApp group called, say the club is Marvel. I'm picking on Marvel. I don't know if Marvel is here. The Rotary Club of Marvel. But they started a WhatsApp group called the Friends of Rotary Club of Marvel. And they invited several persons from across the globe, from across different districts, to be a part of that WhatsApp group. And the club would put their information on, projects on, ideas on, and then persons who are not members or not even Rotarians would join their club meetings, would join their social, would join their fundraisers. They can get some funding in, I'm just saying. And also, they'll find out when other clubs are meeting, and they interact that way as well. So that's another little technique to just get persons involved. Create a Friends of your Rotary Club WhatsApp group, because it really does help invite folks to sit in. So that's one other thing. The other thing that I've seen, we've seen over the past 2 years, PDG David, I didn't realize this 2 years have passed since this COVID thing, really 2 years. Oh my gosh. Another thing that we saw was the clubs that grew during COVID were the clubs that had a lot more, or one or two more hands-on projects. So going into your year, try to continue doing some hands-on projects. We have seen clubs doing social distance, hands-on projects, and you don't have to do it alone or start alone. Partner with the YMCA, partner with your church group, partner with your business association. Check with your, what's the entity again? Check with different entities that's doing that kind of a thing, and you can, and your club can be the hands and the feet on the ground to assist. Get masked up, go out and still do those kind of projects. And we've seen clubs that were assisting with providing food. We've seen clubs signing up folks for vaccinations and putting on their mask and helping. And those clubs that did a few more hands-on projects, they actually grew. And we knew that we're still at that 1.2 million Rotarians, but when we checked over the past year, we normally have growth each year where members come in, and we normally have Rotarians who leave. And the wording that we're looking at also is, their loss, or you may have a natural or normal attrition. Persons leave for whatever reason. They get a little older, their family moved away. That's different reasons. Work took them away. During the pandemic though, we saw a loss, but it was not as high a loss than we anticipated. So say, for example, if on average we're losing 100 Rotarians a year for normal natural attrition, we lost 80. So COVID still affected us in relation to what we did, but it wasn't as bad as it actually is. And actually 70-30 is one of the shining stars in our zone, because 70-30 continues to grow in a positive way. And our friends in the North look in the Caribbean and say, what's going on down there? So the Caribbean, 70-20 and 70-30, we're actually a beacon. And I guess we pivoted, or we kind of had to be forced to pivot a little bit quicker during this whole pandemic.
Right, and thank you, Audley, for those thoughts. I'm glad you mentioned visiting other clubs, because I think it's so much easier. And you have sent on to me invitations that I've been to India, I've been to Africa, virtually, of course. But it is a great opportunity to learn what is happening in other clubs and perhaps get some ideas and tweak it. When I travel, I've been to so many clubs. As a matter of fact, I am kind of like a member of one club where I go to that country more often than others. But it is a great opportunity to learn and share experiences as well, because often when you visit clubs, they ask you to speak as well, to say what is happening in your zone. And I think that that's really a great idea, to foster friendships, but you could also get some partnerships going there as well. And you mentioned in terms of partnering with other organizations, I think that too is vitally important, because it speaks to one of the pillars of Rotary International's vision to expand our reach out to other entities that are doing similar work, so that you can partner with them and be able to have a more impactful project. So thank you so much, Audley. But I think it's time for a voice change. So I hand over to Pipi Leah.
Thanks, Liz. As Audley spoke about Caribbean Rotary being a beacon, it brings us to speak about our Rotary brand, which is very strong and of course naturally attracts interested persons, members of our community. However, when these persons join, it does sometimes appear that their experience doesn't match their expectations. We've all encountered that in our clubs, I'm sure. So Audley, the question to you is, how can clubs improve and create that fun experience for new members?
Oh, that's a nice big one. We need to throw that back out into the room because I'm sure the answers for that one is in the room. So whatever you can think of, and I'm sure, you know, between you and yourself and David, let's see some of those answers, what you've done in the chat. Let's kind of drop it in so we can share some ideas and thoughts on that. But a little bit more on the fun side. The good thing is, hopefully most clubs have a Facebook page when persons are looking at, you know, what a club is doing, but please update it. Sometime you look at a club's Facebook page and the last time you see a notation was January 2018. Fix it up, update it. If you're doing any fun projects, if you're doing any socials, put some of those pictures on and let people know this is what, you know, this club is about. We not only give back and assist our community, but we have fun doing it. And that's one of the reasons why Rotarians join and stay, because there's a survey we did about member satisfaction, and it was funny enough. One of the major reasons why Rotarians stay is that satisfaction level, and it's also in relation to knowing and being friends with your fellow Rotarians. So you really don't want to miss a meeting. It's like every meeting is alive. Have a picture of that or two on your Facebook page. What I'm thinking of, what we've seen persons, clubs do as well, is on the more, not necessarily serious side, but it helps with the branding side. We've seen clubs grow from having a club-specific LinkedIn page. So as the president-elect going in, consider having a LinkedIn page as well from now. The Facebook page is a little bit more friendly. LinkedIn is, you know, exploring and interacting with other professionals. I'm aware of a club that grew by 40% by putting in some of their projects, some of the Rotary statements, materials from RI, and persons asked to join. So that's one of the two things that I'm kind of leaving you to try and update your Facebook page and your website, and consider a club-specific LinkedIn page. And as usual, if you're going out to do a project or a service, have a Rotary shirt on, take some pictures, let people see that this is Rotary and we are people of action.
Thanks so much, Audley. PDG David, how do you think we can improve and create a fun experience for our new members? Right.
Well, so two things here. I understand the word fun, but I'm not trying to be the spoiler, but you know, we have to share all ideas. Not everybody joins Rotary to have fun. So some people might join the golf club to have fun playing golf. I'm trying to be realistic in this. So not everybody joins to have fun, but I like to use examples. If you go to buy a car, and let's use the West Indian staples. If you go to buy a Toyota Corolla or, you know, a Nissan Sentra, to use two staple cars, you look at them and you see what they're offering. They sell you or try to sell you what features each of those cars has, you know. So nowadays you're looking, doesn't have a reverse camera, but they don't want that, you know, that type of thing, because that's what you are looking for at this time. When you actually buy one of them, you then already know, well, these are the features that I have. When you're selling a Rotary club, I think you have to take that into consideration and do the same thing. I think we are probably very poor in this regard. We're inviting people to join the club. We talk about this fun, which I have no problem with personally, but I'm saying, what is the fun? What do? We bring them in, especially if they don't go through a good initiation period. The clubs that have people and make sure they come to the projects over 6 months or whatever before they're let into the club, maybe cover the type of points that I'm making here. But the ones who come in maybe too quickly, Not that there's anything wrong. I joined very quickly too, myself, 43 years ago. So I can't complain about that. But the point is, what are you offering to them? And so that their expectations are met when they sign on, for the want of a better word. Don't sell them what you do not deliver. Because if they come to meetings and after 3 or 4 meetings, they see Audie in the room, but still haven't met Audie because no one has introduced. I mean, every person that comes in a room is not one who is going to introduce themselves to one another. It's human nature. All of us are not the same. The person sponsoring or some committee should be making sure that that person is welcome. So if you're, as things as simple as that, start you on the right footing. Because then if you meet Audie and you strike up a conversation with Audie, you get, by next week, then Audie is a friend that you can approach and talk. So you have 1 or 2 or 3. So what I think is my concrete answer is that we should be providing, we should be telling them what we're offering them, and then we need to provide it.
If I can follow up on that, David, you just sparked the thought as well. And it's also to ask your Rotarians what is fun to them. You're absolutely right. Because, and the surveys also tell us, if you do want, I'm hoping that each of us here has done a survey in their club, some kind of survey. If you wish, I can share some examples of that as well. You can have some formal ones and some informal ones, but I'd love to share that with you. But David, PDG David, you're right. Ask your members what they want as well, because the feedback we got when clubs do specific surveys, if you're a Rotarian 20 years and older, they kind of want a little bit more fellowship and relaxation. If you're a Rotarian for 15 years and under, 5 to 15 years, you want a little bit more hands-on projects, interaction. You know, under 10 years, possibly fellowship and networking, but the fellowship would possibly on the Rotarians for the older members, older in relation to tenure, not age. So consider that by asking them as well. So you're absolutely right. What persons want out of their Rotary experience is totally dependent on what they would want. But finding out exactly is do a survey. It can be a heavy, fancy one. We have some major ones at RI, which is a health check with 2 or 3 pages. It can be something just very simple, asking Rotarians what they like to start, stop, continue, and you know, what's fun for you? What would you like to do? So oftentimes as well, there are some exit surveys. I've seen some really good Rotary application forms with some entrance survey questions on it. So you could ask specifically what are their interests, what they want out of Rotary, and what they can contribute to Rotary as well. So PDG David, you're spot on when that is concerned, but I'm thinking how to know what Rotarians want is by simply asking them. It may be one-on-one, especially if it's a smaller club. You could pick up the phone as a president-elect and call them. If it's a large club, that may take a little longer, but that may be also good as well as a one-on-one interaction. So before your year starts, you kind of have an idea of the feedback, the personality of the persons, but doing some kind of a survey, finding out what the needs of each member. That's really a really good thing to do. And now is the time possibly between going into April, May, June, possibly a one-on-one call as a president-elect to say, look, you know, starting 1 July, we need your support. What are you passionate about? Are we filling the service projects that we need? Are we having fun? And then by interacting, you find out what fun means to them. So think about that over the next 2 or 3 months before you start your year in 1 July. So come 1 July, you're hitting the ground running.
Okay, great. So what I'm hearing is basically we need to focus on 2 areas of our 4-way test. Is it the truth? Tell them what you have to offer and then offer it. Flat out, be truthful about what your club is and what your club intends to be. And of course, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Because you have to have that balance between the fun and the seriousness in order to fulfill your projects and be a strong Rotary club. That will also entice new members to join. Thank you so much, PDG David and RMO Audley, for your insight. I go over to Liz now. I think she has one question in the kitty for you, perhaps a pop quiz type question, but of course, I know you can handle it. Don't worry.
All right, not a curveball, guys, not a curveball. Now, just before, I mean, we kind of wrap up the discussion because I'm seeing the questions coming in the chat as well. You know, each member belongs to a club that has a different culture. And what I've noticed in the Caribbean, in 7030 and within each country is the lack of connection and collaboration between clubs. You know, clubs, and I've noticed that, you know, you've had events and they're clashing events. What are some of the points that you can share with us today in terms of connecting and collaborating outside of your country and within your country itself? Because I really would like to see clubs work together, you know, because we're all seeking to achieve a common objective, which is to serve the community and serve them well and have impactful and lasting projects. But we also want to get fellowship going. We also want to collaborate. We also want to tap into the resources of the talents of other clubs as well. And I think we can do it effectively if we connect and collaborate. What are some of the things that you can share in terms of connecting and collaborating? First, I'll ask PG David, and then he'll hand over to Audley.
Thanks, Liz. Well, since you use the word collaboration, you know, collaboration, my definition would be, you know, working together towards a common goal. So if you're going to collaborate, you have to be, again, we're coming back to the same type of thing that we just talked about. You have to have some vision or some goal to collaborate towards. So what has worked? Many clubs have had partnerships, as we call it, friendly partnerships where they visit one another. I'm speaking in the 70-30 and 70-20 context. Visit island to island because it's different. When clubs are sort of next door to one another in, say, Georgia, the draw to have that collaboration in that way might be different. But certainly across our seas here, the island to island, we've had many collaborations with French to English clubs, you know, where we just do friendship exchanges. And they in the long term lead to projects. Certainly in my early years, I know there were many projects with clubs in Martinique, and it ended up having many children from Martinique come, say, to Barbados or other islands to get immersed in English. And then vice versa, we had children from the English speaking going to Martinique and Guadeloupe to get immersed in French in like the long holidays. So those are the types of collaborations that can work. But I think initially, Liz, to answer your question specifically, we again have to have a reason. It's not just, it could be for anything, but have a goal. Some clubs, I know another two clubs, I should say, that have collaboration for golf. So they go on golf tours. But then they all, you know, they end up being like one club and they're there, and they're not meeting on common turf. They're meeting in the U.S., but they're Caribbean clubs. But they collaborate and meet in the U.S. for golf. So if you see what I mean. But then, having said that, they then collaborate and do projects together for special needs. So it can be whatever you want, but have a goal. It has to be a reason that you're going to meet to start, not just saying that we are friends, because that really doesn't take you very far.
Thank you, Audley.
You're right, PDG, David. But what popped in my mind as well when you mentioned it, Liz, about, you know, conflicting socials, conflicting fundraisers. One of the things that we do hope and encourage that possibly just to start from a localized level is the assistant governor have some meetings with their cluster of clubs, possibly every quarter or once. Are there any assistant governors on the call? You could probably raise a hand.
Yes.
So possibly have one of those meetings with all of your clubs just to share ideas, share thoughts, if it's within your cluster, and also so you can support each other and collaborate from that standpoint, and don't have the same entities or the same the same projects clashing. So that's one thing. The other piece for me is, and we've started it with DG Sonia, go to your district conference if you can. And the wonderful thing with 70-30, it moves around. So that's something a lot of other countries cannot do, because the districts in North America, the districts in possibly South America and Europe, they're taking a drive to their district conferences. They're not going very far. They're not interacting. They don't have to jump on a plane and hear a different language. We have that unique capability to know and meet other persons from a different culture, different country, different language. So that difference is actually a nice benefit from a diversity standpoint. And that's an excellent way to collaborate. So you'll get to know your fellow president-elects. Luckily, we're doing it via Zoom now. But get to know your president-elects, and the relationships will build and the collaborations will happen. One of my closest friends I met at PETS when we did president-elect training together, and we are friends to this day. Another good way to even extend that collaboration further, and DG Sonia mentioned it, try if you can pop into an international conference, an international convention. If you've never been, it's one of the most wonderful things that can happen. And this is the first time we're going to have an in-person one in 2 years. And it's relatively close. You know what I mean? So if you can make it, we're not going to have the 30,000 people, I think, that we normally do. But it's going to be quite a bit. And there's something called a House of Friendship. We have the Rotary Action Groups there. You meet other Rotarians across the globe, build those relationships, build a collaboration, and you can get partnerships with projects and funding and grants and a whole bunch of things. So if you can make it to Houston, make it. It's going to be closer to us this time. Next year, it's going to be all the way over in Melbourne in Australia. And then after that, I think it's all the way over in Asia somewhere. So
Singapore, yeah.
Singapore. I've never been to Singapore. I'm going to try and make that one, PDG David. But if you can make Houston, please do. There are going to be some breakout sessions there as well. So, but you meet other Rotarians from other parts of the world that can build a relationship, build friendships exchanges, and also, get some assistance with funding, because a lot of times the clubs in North America may have additional funding and they want to partner with other countries and other Rotary clubs. And that's a good way to meet and make that initial interaction. So consider going to the international convention, but the closer one is the district conference in Barbados. If you can make Houston, please try and make it. It's a good way to meet other folks in person. Can you imagine you meeting a friend over the beach lime and you're carrying your own rump? That's the guys in North America can't do that.
Thank you, Audley. Thank you so much for those thoughts. In listening to both of you, I think that, and we're seeing the comments coming through in the chat as well. I think what you've shared today in terms of the strategy, having a strategy that is unique to your culture, ensuring that you visit other clubs, because I think that's also key, good advice, to look at your strategic plan to reframe the vision of your club, reframe how you do things, refashion how you do things. And I love this stop, start, continue. I use that all the time. It's a very easy reflective tool that you can actually use and you can get some feedback. But what is also important, which I think you mentioned too, it is not just to send out a survey, because sometimes Rotarians don't always respond to survey. To have those little focus group meetings at either one-on-one, a telephone call, I think that's important. People feel a lot special when the president calls. I can tell you that. If a president calls you to ask you a question, you feel that, okay, this person has noticed me. And that is what all membership wants. They want to know that you have noticed them. Because I've heard many times persons said, you know what, the president passed me straight and I was standing right here waiting to the start of a face-to-face meeting. So we have, those tools that you have mentioned, I think, new member orientation, having a value proposition. Rotary is not about what we can get out of members, but also what Rotary offers members. I think that is very, very important. We must offer them something to keep them interested, to attract new members into our club. So thank you so much for those thoughts from two legendary persons who were actually seeing it both sides of the divide, they're inside our district and outside of our district and internationally. I know that the questions are coming. And I'm not certain, I don't think that we can take a break now. We want to keep this flow going. So I'll hand over to our Q&A master, which is AB today. And AB, over to you to take us through the Q&A session.
Sure, Liz, thanks. Yes, we do have a few questions, and I'm sure those may spawn additional questions. So those that were placed in the chat, and this can be directed to either PDG, Dave, or Audley. The first one is from Tanya, and she asked, how do we effectively measure engagement? In our club, we debate whether member engagement is just selling tickets. Is that enough? So that's the first question.
I'll take that. I'll go there. Before we press on, I just saw in the chat that our Rotary Felicia from St. Vincent left because there is the funeral service this morning for a Rotarian there, so we should remember Sherry Ann Evans in St. Vincent, who was very involved in the relief efforts. So let's remember her and her family as her service takes place. Yeah, so back to that point of measuring engagement. That's a measurement that is different depending on what you are trying to measure. So there are some specific things you can measure. So I see Tanya is specifically saying we use Club Runner. So she's using a template of how you can measure. And that's how we collect the analytics in RI by using forms like that to get the hours, say, of engagement that you've done in a project, that type of thing. That's specific engagement. There's other engagement. It can all be measured by hours, let's say, for going to an event and speaking to a school or speaking to an association, things like that, but still hours involved. So the hours of engagement. So all engagement is not necessarily painting a house or fixing something. It can be speaking, it can be whatever the activity is that you are promoting Rotary in the form that is suited to the circumstances that you are doing it. That's sort of what we are, when I say what Rotary is trying to grasp, because thus far, and I mentioned it earlier about donation and people who support us with funding. You have to remember that to a large part, we were recognized because we are accepted as being a good organization in the old days, and people gave us money. Nowadays, you have to show that a lot more, and that's why we push these things like Transparency International, that Rotary consistently, the foundation consistently performs at the top of that. That's the reason we need to measure engagement. We have to show people what we do. All is not related to money, but still we are serving a community, whatever that community is, in the way which we are best able to do it. And we have to account for how we do that and show them that this is what we are doing to promote our community or country, whether it be polio, polio eradication, or drilling water wells, or educational projects, or other things. That's the measurement that we want to have. So the methodology, and I'm sure that Audley will have a different perspective from the internal analytics and so, but the idea of having that is to be able to project that to the world of this is what we do. And the only way we can do it is if clubs input that information into our master on the Rotary website. It's so important to have it and to put the projects, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So it's all right to say that we've spent 10 hours doing something, but if you can actually see a picture that Abram was at a school in Trinidad presenting, then that means so much. Or see somebody painting, that's the measurement that we want to have to promote engagement. Or you could probably give a little more on the analytics side, especially
Well, you said it quite well. I'm not so sure if I could add anything because I love your point about the hours, because the attendance piece, as we're saying, if it's your club is really looking at attendance, that's okay. But the engagement piece is, if you're a data person, the measurement and the number would possibly definitely be around hours. So there's nothing much we could really add to that, because the hours could be a service project, it could be a social. Suppose you have a member in your club who's an attorney or a pilot or somebody who's in construction and cannot make it during the day for your meeting, but they're at every project and every social in the evening, and they can contribute financially to the project. So the hours, I think, is really a good way to look at it. And again, as you said, PG David, the formal pieces, if you key some of that information into Rotary Club Central. And the reason why we kind of like the idea of keying that information in, because Rotary International can collectively say, and you may see some of these numbers float around sometimes, collectively you could say, well, last year Rotarians did 1.2 million hours of this and 2.4 million hours of that. That's where they get that information from, once they key the information into Rotary Club Central. But I like that idea of, you know, looking at hours and looking at engagement level based on you as a president-elect coming in. How often do we see our Rotarians at a project, at a social? But if they're not at the meetings, you know, what's more important? So I think you're absolutely right. The other piece of it, too, from an engagement standpoint, is one of our major strategic goals, which is to assess our impact. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, and I've heard this story before, when our president suggested we're going to plant trees, and we did X amount of trees. And every Rotary Club went out and planted trees. This was a wonderful, wonderful project. What we need to do to build on the engagement piece, to engage the wider community, is the language around the trees and what we did, which was afterwards. So the language that we should have done, and we're putting it to you, is because we planted so many trees, we have increased our oxygen level or reduced our carbon monoxide footprint by X%. Now, if we can have some of that language out in our communities based on what you do as a club, that's an excellent way to measure the engagement by what our achievements have been done. So if you're working with a school or you're providing meals somewhere, use that kind of language as to what the impact is to measure the level of engagement.
Okay, great. And there's somewhat of a follow-up or an extension to that same question, and this is from Rayburn. He
Sure.
says, or he asks, in the same way that clubs may have attendance requirements, should clubs consider having engagement requirements for members? And I suppose he might be asking, should engagement requirements be formalized within the club?
Again, I guess that's dependent on the club. And again, each club is autonomous, so do what works for you. If it can be fun with it, that's something you could look at. We've seen clubs do have like a formal sheet with about 10 or 15 different items to check off for new Rotarians. Okay. And I kind of liked it because it kind of makes sure the newer Rotarians are engaged from the get-go. Things like, for the first month, you're greeting the members at the front of the room. You're acting as Sarge for month 2. You're sitting at another table at month 3. Month 4, you're doing something else. So it was kind of cool. It was a kind of fun way to get the newer members interacting, as opposed to coming in and not really getting to know each other yet. So again, each club is autonomous, and I could share some samples of that possibly with Liz as well, to when we're done, so she could share all of the information as well if the PE is needed. But that may be a way possibly to look at formalizing an engagement piece. And you could possibly do the same sheet for existing members to say, look, make sure, and the things are on it, like make sure you go to a district conference, try and go to a district training, just other things that you kind of check off a box, but it's not formal and rigid to say if you don't make it, you know what I mean? It's you know, you're not a Rotarian kind of a thing. It's a nice little checkbox over a 2 or 3 month period. So that's a way possibly you could do it. PDG David?
Agreed, 100% agree. Can't add to that, 100%.
Okay, great. We have another question here from Juan, and this is somewhat of a perennial one that's going to take some discussion. He asks, what are some strategies that can be used for bridging the generation gap between the newer, younger members and what he has as the old guard. So David or Audley, over to you.
That's the one from Nam.
That's
What?
from that's from Juan Bailey. Rotary Club
Okay,
Bermuda.
I'm not seeing that. I was trying to follow it and I maybe lost. Well, you want to
Sure.
state it
Right.
for me then, because I lost it.
So one asks, what are some strategies that can be used for bridging the generation gap between our newer, younger members and the old guard? And it's all within the context of engagement.
Okay, but then you choose me because you choose me as the old guard. Maybe I am, but so look, it's not. There's nothing written in stone, maybe for anything. But I'll do something I don't normally do because I don't like to speak of myself. But let's take me and my club. My president-elect is in here, and my president-elect is in here, so they can strike me down if I say anything wrong. But they'll be my check and balance. But you get, and you're talking young and old, not necessarily something I prefer to deal with because I consider everybody a member. But true enough, they may be young in age, so there is that age gap. We have to accept that. I see myself as one of the old guard. Yes, I do. And I make sure, and I really do, I make sure and reach out to every new member, regardless of whether I'll be involved in bringing them in or not. So you can't bring in everybody, right? So I reach out to every new member. Trying to get to know them, trying to get to know what they are interested in, same thing we talked about before, and encourage them and encourage the board or whoever to get them involved. That, to me, that links my group to their group if you were looking at it from an age perspective. And what that does is, to me, it sort of breaks the link, thinking, well, this old group, we maybe can't talk to them because I don't believe in that system. In fact, I am very much against it. So that's why I probably look out more to do it consciously, to make sure that we're not being shown as an old group who you can't approach or talk to. We're the same members. I don't see myself as an old member and a young member type of thing. I remember you're going out to work, we all do it the same way. We're all one. That's my easy answer to that question of the age difference.
All right, and
Or
maybe
they might have a different perspective.
No.
or maybe a young guard's perspective.
What I've seen clubs do actually, which I like, is I don't know if any of you have had any kind of a mentorship program. It could be a formal mentorship program or something informal, where you pair an older member, and again in tenure, when I say older, it's not older in age, an older member with a newer member, and you encourage it. You encourage that relationship, you encourage them to go somewhere and have a beer and have a chat or have a cup of coffee once every 2 or 3 weeks. And it's a nice way to kind of break down the barriers between the older Rotarians and a younger Rotarian. So you could even appoint someone in your club as the mentorship chair, where they organize that, look at, so say you have an older accountant as in age or tenure, and a younger person coming in is also an accountant, and you kind of put those two, because those folks that have a lot to speak about and possibly have a lot more in common, or you could mix it up. So consider that as a good way to help. It may be surprised, because once they spend and have a meal together somewhere, or they driving on the road and they go and have some doubles in Trinidad and have a chat over a beer, it's a different conversation than what happened. So it might be a way to do that. We have a formal mentorship program. And what we find too is, as an idea to when we're getting some of those younger members in, sometimes it's a challenge to have one younger person come in, especially if your club is mainly with older members. We're seeing some success if you possibly induct 2 or 3 of those younger members, or even Rotaractors at a time, as opposed to one person coming in and then possibly feeling lost. at that club. So consider if you can induct 2 or 3 younger persons at a time, they will come. They may be able to sit with each other for the first couple of weeks, and then they try and integrate. When their friends see the interaction and the fun that's happening, because your club has to be fun and the meetings have to be fun, they would then attract other younger members to come in, and then you'd have less of an older guard and a younger guard, and a nice merger and a mixture. Because we need both. We need the strength and the experience of our older Rotarians, and we need a newer perspective from our younger Rotarians. And let me share an example. I've shared this example before, and I actually love it. There was a club that needed to do a race, and the idea was they're going to block off part of the road and do this 5K race, have persons out to the water stations and so on. The person that was in charge of that committee was a younger Rotarian. He's been a Rotarian for about 3 or 4 years, active, a lot of energy. And they gave a report. So how are things going with the marathon? How is it happening? How is the race coming along? So, well, things are going okay. Everything is set. We have our volunteers. We're trying to get a permit now to, close off the road. So we're having a challenge, And, older Rotarian in the back of the room said, really having a challenge? I said, okay, it's all right. Let me call John. John was the police chief. And they got the approval in half a minute. So needing the older Rotarians and working together with our younger Rotarians is a good way, is a good thing. So I really love that story where that's a real story that happened. And they got the permit in literally minutes. So having the older guard and the newer guard getting to know each other, because if they knew each other, they wouldn't have had that issue in the first place.
Correct.
Okay, great. All right, and there's a little connected question here from Tracy. She asked, what's the role of the sponsor? Shouldn't that person take on, a mentorship role as well?
If possible. Mm-hmm. Well, we both possibly, because it's not necessarily that the sponsor can be the mentor, and not meaning that in a bad way, but we encourage, and again, when we say we speak Rotary, we're encouraging people to sponsor other people. So you may have a very young Rotarian who is in a position to sponsor another good young Rotarian. They may not be the best mentor from the Rotary standpoint for that person. So in that case, you need one of the old guard in terms of age in Rotary, time in Rotary. So that answer is flexible for the. I understand exactly where Tracy's going, but so that's flexible. You use the best for fit for purpose is the new thing that we speak about, fit for purpose. And it's how you integrate them. We spoke of that earlier. How you integrate people into the club, how much mentorship they would need depends on how you bring them in. DGE Leslie, I know he's there sitting quietly. I joined Rotary in the club that DG Leslie is still in, and Charles is the president-elect. When I joined that club, it was 4 or 5 months old only, and as I said, I got inducted. I got inducted swiftly. I didn't go through any long process, but I got inducted at like 12:30. And at 2 o'clock, the president was in my office, but we were back at the office. The president arrived in my office with a big ledger book and put it on my desk and says, here you are, you're the attendance chairman. I says, but I don't even know the people yet. He says, but that's how you're going to find out. And that was the end of that. From there on, I was working. So it's just a matter of how you do it. That was their way. I found it to be an excellent way, actually, because you know what? We speak about putting people to work. Getting them involved. I was involved 2 hours after I was inducted. So it means a lot. It really does. But you taper it to suit the circumstances in your own club. Some clubs have 20 members. You can do certain things. And there's no sense then me saying that in my 20-member club, this is how we do it, because another person in a 95-member club or a 100-member club, they can't do that. You have to do it a different way. So it's you have to do it to suit your circumstances.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Sure.
And a related question, like this is from Namdeo, almost similar, you may have answered in part. We have had many young members join and then leave. I think there is a disconnect between senior members and the new generation? What strategies can be used to address this? Any additions to what you would have said just now?
Not really. I think we sort of covered that already in a lot of the earlier discussion. But suffice to say, it comes back to that thing of what were they sold? What did they come to? And we already mentioned exit surveys. They're not popular, but they are great tools for learning as to what's happening, because we need to know why they're leaving. Rotary has attracted more people than one could reasonably expect to attract. We have done well with attracting people to join. We have not done well with attracting people to stay. And it's coming back to the point we had earlier. No need to repeat it, but we have to sell the product that we are offering them in the particular club we are offering them. And I think therein lies the problem, and we need to address that.
Absolutely. And the club environment has to be fun. You have to have a product. If you have to have a good location, have a good meeting, whether it's a meeting space or a formal meeting, the members, older and younger, have to be comfortable. And a good way, again, as I said, PDG David, from an exit survey, to do regular surveys if it's possible, or do an entrance survey, just to find out what they're passionate about. And what we're seeing that clubs that grew is Rotarians are coming in because they want it. Well, one of the major reasons Rotarians join is to do local community projects. That's one of the main reasons why Rotarians join Rotary. So ask them what they're passionate about, especially for a newer, younger member. And younger, again, is in tenure, not age. And what are they passionate about? So if they come in and tap into the club and that particular club is not reaching out to what they're passionate about, ask them to bring that project to the floor. So say, for example, a club may have a traditional project where every year we supply things to a hospital, and that's we do it every year. We go and take pictures, we know the CEO. But this new Rotarian, they are more interested in helping children and reading and literacy. But the club has no project related to that. How would you know as a president-elect that that particular newer, younger Rotarian is passionate about that? You'd have to ask them via survey, or like what Liz said, a one-on-one conversation. So if we're not, as a club, not providing that opportunity for them to give off service how they're most passionate about, ask them to bring that to the floor. Bring that project to the floor and let us see if we as a club can go behind you and run with it and see how we fund it. And as usual, they may be the person chairing that particular committee, who knows? And that drives this level of engagement and passion, and they retain members from that standpoint. Then they bring two other friends in to say, look, we're setting up this thing, we have a library going, and we have 2 schools that need it. And the club has 2 or 3 major projects when they started with just 1. And then that widens the level of reach in our community and attracting more people. So in my thinking, find out what they're passionate about, the newer Rotarians. If your club is not offering what they're passionate about, create it. Especially if that particular passion is going to be giving back to the community and helping, for us to grow in a consistent way as well. So ask them, tell me what you're passionate about. You know of a particular project, bring it to us. Let's bring it to the board and see if we can get behind this one and fund it. That's a good way. We've seen that particular way work.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the attraction to Rotary, to the product, is what you project, and we can't repeat that enough. It's what you project. The biggest bump in membership requests and clubs increase in membership takes place, especially in this region, takes place after we have a significant event. So unfortunately, when we have something like a hurricane or floods or the earthquake or something, there is a membership boom, especially in the clubs that are directly involved in that event. It's amazing that it happens that way, but it proves the point that the people then are seeing Rotary doing, and that's what they want to be a part of. So I think we should always remember that in what we are projecting is what we do, to let them know how our service is projected to the public.
Yes, very good. And related comment, not a question, from this is Ermine and Nigel, very consistent with what both of you would have mentioned, and this is in response to the question that was posed: how can we make club experience fun for new members? And the comments that were posted here is allowing them to make a contribution or serve in an area of interest or of their interest and expertise, which is what was articulated by both Audley and PDG. As well as Nigel says, immediately include them in projects.
Absolutely.
We have one more question here from, this is Mark. Mark asks, we have started hybrid meetings with virtual and physical, another learning curve for us. What tips can you offer for ensuring our virtual attendees stay included while physical is proceeding? And I suppose it can be vice versa also.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to start with that one? I would.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll have a thing at the end of it.
All right, no problem. Well, one thing right off the bat is hopefully the location that you have is conducive to a virtual meeting. So because of COVID, a lot of clubs had to move or shift, and again, this fancy word, pivot. If you had to move because, where your restaurant was meeting, they had closed down and things are still a little dicey, but you have a nice, long, wonderful relationship. If you have to move, consider going to a location with AV already in place, possibly a ceiling mounted projector, possibly, with an audio visual, thing already there. Because from a hybrid standpoint, it's a major challenge if you have one Rotarian, they're the one responsible for hugging the screen, carrying the projector, getting there early and setting up. It can be a challenge and a real responsibility for that person. So if you have to move, try and find a location with that in place where it's easier for anyone to just patch in. We've seen clubs move to a library with a room with an AV in place. We've seen clubs work with a university that has their lecture hall with that already in place. So consider that. Or a restaurant with a room at the side with function. So that's my first suggestion. If you have to move, if you don't have to move because of a relationship, or I have to get someone carry the projector and the screen, try and spread that responsibility around, because it can be a heavy task for that one Rotarian carrying it every week, lifting it back in their car, tugging back and forth. So that's the first thing. What I've seen clubs do, again, to involve the persons that are virtual, have the persons on the virtual do the four-way test. Let them do the invocation. Let them introduce the speaker. So there's always an interaction with the persons on screen and the persons in the room, because often we tend to forget that the persons are on screen and we're going along with the hybrid meetings in person. So invite them, get them involved, put them on the program, because, and as possible as a president, you're going to have an agenda set up. Say, reach out to them and say, boy, PDG, Lyle, I needed to do the invocation next Tuesday now. And Lyle was going, boy, I wasn't sure I was going to make that meeting, but the president asked me, so I know I'm going to have to be there. So that's another way to invite persons to make sure that they come along, especially if you know that particular Rotarian may have a challenge physically coming to the meeting. Give them a role. Invocation, four-way test, toast. Ask them to introduce the guests. Ask them to do happy dollars or whatever. Get them involved that way. We've seen it work, and especially if you reach out to them ahead of time, that also ensures that they actually attend, because they have some work to do. So, PDG David?
Agreed, 100%. I'll stick with the technical, you hit it earlier, I'll just reinforce. One of the critical things with a hybrid meeting, good as it may be in theory, is location. So room versus sort of an outdoorsy, noisy background, and what Audley said about the technical side. So my suggestion would be, if you are doing a hybrid, two things: choose that room very carefully, and possibly the way you actually run the meeting is also critical. It may be better to have lunch or dinner or whatever the actual meeting is entailing in that respect, have that, and then project only the meeting part of the activity, rather than have the projection on just people eating and the noisy clangor of the plates and so on. That's really not necessary for what you're trying to project. So hold the meeting only after the dinner or the lunch is finished and project that part. I find that's a lot better. If not, it becomes
very good point.
Totally confusing. Yeah. So from a technical side, I would say having the one of the ones doing it, I would say that's probably the best way to do it.
I saw a note in the chat to PDG David to show some Rotary videos during lunch. I've seen that as well. And there are tons of videos on Rotary.
Yeah, well, I like doing that. But you know,
or the promo video for the conference, right? Between
ironically, I started showing videos to the club before the COVID. And just to show it and to tie it back to some of the things that you said earlier, because by the way, we want to ask you some questions too, because we want some DPEs to talk with us. So we want to get into asking you some questions, but we'll get to that very shortly. Just before the 2019, yeah, just before Hamburg. So during the year of 2018-19 in the club, I just happened that one of the videos I showed was girl Patience Emijor from Uganda, with one drop of Patience. Her name is Patience, and the little video, a 4 or 5 minute video, was one drop of Patience, and it gave her story of how she went up in the hills with the polio, immunization. As it turned out, Patience, I met Patience in Germany at the convention because she was brought specifically to speak about her journey in Uganda and polio eradication. So I met her and told her I was going to introduce her to some of the members of my club who I knew had liked the video and so on. As it turns out, by that afternoon, when I told them I was going to introduce her, she had met them in the House of Friendship. And because of that link and having seen her in the video, the Rotaractors organized to bring Patience to Barbados to link up her Rotaract club in Uganda with ours here. Unfortunately, she was to come in May 2020, and you know what happened in March. So the pandemic put paid to that, but I'm sure it's still going to happen after. And it brings back, ties in with the point Audley made of just meeting in a convention hall. Look what has come out of that type of thing, you know? So everything ties back there. But yeah, so getting back to the technical side, choose the right room and adapt, I think is the best word to use, adapt the meeting to suit what you're projecting.
Great, wonderful. This question is directed to Audley. This is coming from Genzel. He says here, some club membership is challenged by population. Can they consider growing club members by allowing persons that live in the diaspora but are committed to attendance and contributing?
Absolutely. And with the level of flexibility that is there now, anything that you can think of from a membership standpoint, more than likely the policy documentation is already in place to accommodate it. So during this whole COVID scenario in the past 2 years, there are alternative membership types that's formally there from Rotary International that can be worked in your club. For Rotarian, there really just 2 types of Rotarian. They are honorary or active, and you'll key that in through Club Runner and Rotary.org. But how the club designates or describes an active Rotarian is totally up to the club. It's up to you guys. You can tweak your bylaws to accommodate this. So let me just share with you what I've seen. I've seen some clubs do online only members. They're not able to come in person. They're there for social, they're there for fundraisers, but they can't make the meetings, but they commit to joining a meeting each time. So their due structure might be a little bit different, especially if you have a meal, included in your dues. We're seeing service only members where they're not able to come to a meeting, but they're there for every service project. So if you have somebody attached or linked to your club, but they're physically in another space, but they could join in if you have that hybrid scenario and they're able to come in via Zoom, log them into your club as a member, and that's okay. And again, that's totally up to your club, and you could designate them a service-only member. We're seeing young professionals members, we're seeing family membership, because young professional may be a lesser dues up to between 20 and 30, you know, between 35 and 45, the dues may go up a little bit to accommodate and come to what the actual dues is for the full club. So again, whatever you can think of, more than likely the policy is already there, because for us, from an RI standpoint, you just need to be an active or honorary member. So consider it that way. And if you really look at the population of wherever we are, whichever island or so, or whatever part of the district, before you consider, boy, we may not have the population for it, consider what the population of your country or where your area is. Because if your island has 30,000 members and you have a club of 30 members, that's still 0.01% of the population. There's still room to grow. So consider that piece when you're thinking of, oh, the population might be a little bit small. Look at what your adult population is in relation to what your club size is. And I'm sure you're going to say, boy, we didn't realize we're really 0.1% of the population, you know. But check the numbers that way. So consider those two things for me. And I think you should be okay. David?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, agreed. I wanted to start asking some questions, but I think Liz wanted to take a minute.
Okay, yes, we will. I know. Thank you, AB. Great job. I know that we can continue on and flow, but I think that we should take a break now, and then we can come back, because I know these two young men. I'm saying these two young men have been planning this thing. You know, been talking to them. They're at 9 o'clock in the night, and they're discussing, and they want to engage you. So let's have a 10-minute break, and then we come back with those questions. I hope you guys can still be with us, please. Thanks.
Great.
All right, so we'll take a 10-minute. It's 10:43, so 10:53 we'll be back.
Great.
I think you should make that 5 minutes, not 10. 10 is too long.
Yeah,
5
is long.
Okay, 5 minutes then. 5 minutes. All right, thanks.
We'll just take two more. This is from Ermine again. She asked, this is in relation to improving retention rate. Is there a need to review our orientation process to allow members to gain a better understanding before committing? What more can clubs do to retain its members?
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The clubs that we are seeing that are doing well, either the president or the membership chair or members of the membership committee for that club sit down and have a conversation with those persons before joining. Not like what happened with PDG David time, but they have a conversation before. And just to wrap with them to find out, can you make the meetings? This is what our dues look like. This is what we would, request of you, time-wise, project, service, socials. Are you able to come to the meetings? We'd like to do something called pets. We try to go to district conferences, and mainly just to confirm if they have a heart for service, or if they really want to come around and pass their business cards around. So that one-on-one conversation first, we're seeing has been very, very beneficial before the Rotarian come in from an orientation standpoint. Following up with that, after the members, you have a group of persons coming in, we're seeing club do like a member orientation after. So this initial discussion is one-on-one, a little more private. The orientation happens after, where they dive into what is this 70-30 thing they keep hearing about, what is a district governor, but there'll be possibly 2 or 3 months of Rotarian at that point, and you explain about grants and service projects and foundation. But that's like the second piece after. We have seen clubs do it in a cluster with their assistant governor, and that provides a social as well to possibly somebody's home where you can have a meal and over some beer and wine. But it's a cluster of AGs, 4 or 5 or 10 new Rotarians having that orientation after, but a one-on-one with that club president or the club membership chair, just to go a little bit more detail on the uniqueness of that club. So we've seen those two things as being very, very beneficial and very helpful from a retention standpoint, because the Rotarians knew exactly what was happening from the get-go, from the beginning, from the outset. So PDG David?
Yeah, that's the model that I am very familiar with, and I know that it works. But even that model needs to be tweaked sometimes, because you have to tweak it to suit almost who you were bringing in. And you see, the one, that's why the one size doesn't always fit as we speak, because as you said, my day was different, true enough. But even at present, let's take, I'm not going to call the name, but let's take, there are certain clubs in even our district that I would consider, let's just say, more remote than others to be, so the catchment area that they have for members is completely different to the catchment area the club, say, in the main city would have. That's a fact. So I remember specifically a club that in my time, a bank moved into that town. That was a big thing for that town. So, you know, an international bank moving in. Well, they went after the bank manager immediately. So there wasn't an if or but if this person would suit being a Rotarian, because they figured the bank manager automatically should be a Rotarian, if you see where I'm coming from. And they went after him, and boom, he became a member, and boom, he became the treasurer the next morning, because again, the area they had, their people were in different fields, but not necessarily, they didn't have any accountants around. So that's a fit for purpose type orientation. He was oriented by profession and circumstance, okay? And actually was able, in the reverse, to bring up the level of that club by accountability and setting standards and setting up things. So that's how that works. So it can work in the reverse as well. But yes, the one outlined by you is the one I'm very familiar with. It works in my club very well. Maybe needs a little tweaking, but recommended to have a system of orientation. It's so critical. I see a Rotaract club here, one of our Rotaract clubs. To get into that club, by the time you get into that club, you are known to be a worker and fully committed, because they virtually take you through the ringer to get in. And maybe, just saying maybe, in some cases, we have to look at some of those measures to make sure we're getting people that will then stay. Because by the time they come in, we are sure they're staying.
Fantastic. Okay, and last one, this follows very interesting thread posted in the chat for meeting engagements. What do you call it? Fines, dollars, happy fines, whatever it is. Is it a tool for engagement or disengagement at meetings? Brief answer or response.
Oh, it should be engagement, and it should be a fun factor. So if someone stands up, or the Sarge stands up and say, we're gonna fine, you know, Charles X amount of money, and if it doesn't have it because it didn't have the cash at the time, it should be a fun. It shouldn't be pressuring. It shouldn't feel embarrassed by it, or, you know what I mean. It's, you know, if you collect at the end of the day, then you do. But it shouldn't be. It should be a fun piece. It shouldn't let the Rotarian walk away or feeling embarrassed in it at all. That's my take on it.
Okay. David?
Agreed. That's the fun part. That's the definite fun part. And it's to be encouraged where it suits. I obviously don't suggest getting, I know some of them get too far with the joke part of it, but that can be fun at a different level. But the fines, certainly, I subscribe to that very much. Okay. Fines, happy dollars, whatever you want to call it. And a good Sarge always draws out the people who don't necessarily stand up and talk normally. Okay. And that's the good thing about that. You bring them out in a fun way and get them at least to speak at the meeting, even if it's to respond to something you were telling them, to get them to pay a fine.
Right.
You know, and funny enough, PG David, I saw a club that had a lot of fun with raffles, which is because I saw in the chat that, you know, the fines help with, you know, generating some funds for the club. I saw a club do some fun things with raffles, and you know, you ask someone to bring a bottle of wine or something and you have one raffle. But this club was having 4 or 5 winners per meeting. And they were giving away things like pens and paper clips and letter openers, just simple, a little key. And the folks were fighting over the raffle in a fun way. But at least 4 persons walked away getting something. And the club made so much money because they just don't know what the president is going to carry that day. Or, you know, if you're in a particular club and members in the club are affiliated with a company and you get some company swag, a keyring. So I remember, you know, seeing like a paper clip or something or a small novelty stapler was given away, but it was just a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for answering all these questions that were posted and comments. Well done. So Liz, that's all from the box. Back to you.
All right. So at this point, I know that, like I said, that these guys are planning to ask some questions. So maybe you stay right there, because I think that the questions can either come in the box or it can, you know, individuals can raise their hands and we will unmute them. Any of our district training committee members can unmute them. So David and Audley, if you can, you know, still take the floor. And
how much time do you have? How much time do you have, David and Liz? Another 5-10 minutes, maybe?
Another 10 minutes, yes.
Okay.
Well, let me just jump off that ledge here, and first of all, we'd like to hear from, say, at least one French as well, and one from maybe the ABC Islands. We want a diverse group to answer. But in your planning, and this is more related specifically to the PEs, in your planning, have you involved your team, or do you have a plan that's your plan, or do you have a plan that's the club's plan? That's a simple way of putting it. Who wants to go? If not, we will help. I will help to volunteer. Charles, your hand is up. You have to unmute or be unmuted, Charles. Hustle. Are you able to unmute yourself, Charles?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Always happy to answer this one, always happy. This is my second term as president in 3 years. So of course I have a year of experience to call on. I think that although a president needs to have ideas of his own, he's not going to succeed if they're only his ideas, because it's a team and we are one. So yeah, if you have ideas, you need to discuss them with your incoming board before you take over, so that you can get them on board. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle for the rest of your tenure.
Inclusivity, yeah, correct. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I think I saw Sonia Perry.
Sonia, yes.
Sonia Barry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's
Good.
unmuted now.
Yes, good morning. Actually, the host was not allowing me to unmute.
Okay.
Good morning again, everyone. PDG, David, and Audley, thank you very much for the presentations. They were excellent. In relation to the question that was just posed, the approach that I have taken as president-elect of the Rotary Club of St. Kitts is to at least put a framework in place of the areas that I am passionate about. And the plan is that when we have a club assembly, I think within the next week or two, to present that framework to the members of my club, to solicit ideas as to modifications to the framework that's placed before them, and also to add ideas for projects that individual members of the club are also passionate about, so that we build the team spirit, especially coming out of COVID and trying to keep the energy levels high, and also, as the speaker before me said, to have buy-in so that we all move forward on the same page and with the same objective.
Nice, very, very good. And you have Leah to deal with too, so good luck to you.
I have very good resources, thank you, in past President Leah and also PDG Trevor. And our club is an older club, so we have a lot of Rotarians who have years of experience as being Rotarians. We are trying to bring in new members who can bring down the average age a little, but the hope is that we can all gel and hopefully move forward on a positive note.
Very good. Excellent. I think Tanya was, I know she posted, but Tanya, you want to elaborate on what? Yeah. Try unmuting, Tanya. Yeah, there you go. It was just done. Try again. Yeah, you're off.
Good morning, everyone. I'm based in Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks for allowing me to speak. In our club, I'm a new Rotarian, and in my eyes, there are a few, let's call them trouble areas. Not everybody will agree in my club that they are trouble areas, but I wanted to, before 1st of July is here, that I wanted to have understanding of those areas in particular. So I started working with the current club committees to find out more and to develop a plan with them to take to the board for the board's input. And then when we have our next forum on in April, that we will then take those ideas to the entire membership, for them to actually vote on, so that we get rid of some of the ambiguity relating to those particular things. And I've been a little bit selfish that I don't want to have to deal with those issues next year. So I'm using this time now to try to work them out. And I've been very honest with the incoming board that if we don't work out these issues, then we're not going to be dealing with them next year. It's going to be continue as is. That will be somebody else's problem the year after.
Yeah, so you're hitting, yeah, go ahead, Avi.
What's the size of your club?
We have 40 members, including our honorary members.
Okay, because do you do any kind of surveys by chance? Anything at all like that? I love surveys. It can be.
Yeah, they vary. So we've had membership surveys from a club admin role. That's the role that I'm in now. We've also done surveys relating to how we do the meetings moving forward. So we're doing the surveys not as everything at one time, but as a concern comes up or curiosities arisen, then we do these mini surveys.
That's fantastic. Because I love the idea of a survey, especially from a president-elect standpoint, because hopefully we get some response back, over 40–50% response. If a 40-member club, we get 20 members. The reason why I like it is when you're going to the committees or going to the board, to say, look, can we implement changes? You don't want the changes to say, well, I am coming in as president, so I am making the changes. Okay, you can get some real heavy pushback from that standpoint. And this is the reason why I like surveys, because if you have a survey and you suggest that you do it anonymously, so you don't have, and you tell the members that to look, write what you feel, don't worry about it, we don't know who you are. Whomever is collecting possibly would. But what I love about it is you could confidently say, the reason why we're changing this or moving the meeting time or having this particular meal or shifting that project, you can confidently say, from the survey, 80% of the respondents said this, 70% of the members said that, as opposed to it removes it from you wanting to change things and saying, this is a collective request or response that I got, and we're putting it to the board. So you could try it that way, because you're going in and changing up a lot of things. No, you don't want to get a lot of pushback. And I think Charles can possibly share with that, because this is the second time around. You need to get that buying. And one of the ways to get the buying is to work with the feedback that you get. So if the feedback is one-on-one, that's excellent. If it can be done by a survey, that's also good.
Yeah, that's true. And she's actually hitting a lot of the nails there. She's a new member, young member, as she said. She's identified that there are some areas of concern, in my words. So the only thing now is to share and get the buy-in, which you are planning to do in the club forum. So
absolutely
well on the way. And then from there on, it's the leadership angle that you have to impose to bring that to fruition, either before or after you're the official leader. That's the leadership part. Thanks for that. I think Tracy was the next.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thanks for that, Audley. In terms of these surveys, I think one of the things we have to do in my club is that we have to look at how we distribute these surveys in terms to get the response. I think we may have to do a blended approach, both email and in person, so that we can get the collective response based on the demographic of my club. So it's definitely something that I am looking at. You asked about the strategic plan and what the president-elects have been doing. I started off actually last Saturday by having a joint strategic planning discussion with both the incoming and the outgoing board. And they had, prior to that, they've been discussing with their committees what the plan should look like for the year coming up. My areas of focus really are going to be looking at membership engagement and service projects, so we get back out in the communities and stuff like that as safely and as quickly as possible. Some more than what we have been able to do with COVID. And following our strategic plan and so forth, then we will present that at our club forum at the end of the month for feedback from our members. Refine that and drill that down and concretize our plan, but definitely looking at a strategic plan that is as collaborative as possible and that we can secure as much feedback as possible. And then before I start my year, the membership surveys as well. So that's how we've been approaching it in Barbados. And so if you have any other
I have a quick question for you, Tracy. Are you meeting in person or purely online or kind of a hybrid?
Well, we were online, but we go back to meeting in person from this Thursday. So we have 5 in-person meetings coming up before the start of my year. So my plan is to distribute some of those membership surveys. I just have some Rotarians sit with some other Rotarians to guide them through the form. We try to keep it simple though, but definitely get as much online as we can, and then as much in-person submissions as possible.
There's a little sheet that
face-to-face.
Oh, there's a little sheet I think I may have shared it with Liz, especially for the members who don't want to do or don't necessarily like this online thing. Is a little sheet that you could leave in your in-person meetings, and you could possibly do it over 2 or 3 days. If you're in, it would be good to do a 7, 8, 10 question survey to really get a little more information. But there's an option to just have a little sheet, and I could possibly share it with Liz as well. It's a little sheet that looks like this, that you could leave in person, that simply asks what you'd like to start, stop, continue, and a little box for comments. So this could be a good little way to do a pulse check after a major survey, or if your club is not doing any feedback in at all, if you're getting some kind of feedback is awesome. And this is what I was asking, if you're meeting in person or over Zoom. So getting some kind of feedback would be excellent to really populate the information that you'd want to put in that larger, major strategic development plan. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I appreciate that. That's great feedback.
I've seen a 3-hour discussion happen with the information on this little sheet of 3-inch by 4-inch piece of paper.
Yeah, I totally get it, because in my professional life, that's what I do. So I should be able to apply it on the club site.
It's just getting feedback.
Thanks.
Yeah, feedback is useful. Thank you.
Sure.
Of course, Audrey, I let you take that one because that's my PE, whom I'm very proud of. I wasn't going to answer her on anything. Eileen, you were next.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for your presentations. Quite enlightening. Now, I'm with the Rotary Club of Antigua. We started our strategic planning process several years ago when we were still able to meet in person. We have not yet completed it for one reason or another, but I do plan to complete it before July. just to ensure that it's quite advanced. What we need to do now is to look at the projects that we want, the activities that we want to put in place in terms of our objectives. As far as the actual engagement of the incoming directors, I am in the process of sending letters out to each director, asking them to start thinking about drafting their individual plans for their committees. I am also including the role descriptions for their responsibilities and asking them to sign off. I have an HR background, by the way. Asking them to sign off on those roles. Concurrently, I will be doing asking the current president to work with me to do a survey to get the pulse of the members, to see what they really want to do for 2022, 2023. And so we will then, as a board, incorporate as much of the feedback that we get into our plans. Once the draft plans are completed, the plan is I will take the time to sit down with each director to fine tune exactly to ensure that what is being planned is smart. It has to be realistic, it has to be achievable, all of that. And then we can finalize. Thereafter, we'll sit with the board. We will all look at the individual plans. And from there, we then take it to the wider membership. I should also add that the incoming board is being encouraged to familiarize themselves with the other roles. Go to the Learning Center and become familiar with what the other roles are, because you cannot have an informed, enriching discussion if you're not familiar with, you don't have the global picture, in other words. So in essence, that is where we are, and that is what we plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Of course, I know you said you made it clear you have an HR background, but and it's great to have all the paperwork and so, but I was hoping you would say you sit down with them, but you did, because that's really where you will get the buy-in when you sit down with them individually and talk it through. Yeah. So the backup of the paper is good, but it's good to have the team as a team in person, COVID protocols permitting. Yeah. So
we have Lucette.
Yes.
Okay.
But we haven't Lucette here.
Good morning. I'm from Curacao, the Rotary Club of Curacao, and last Thursday we were celebrating our 85th year of Rotary. So it's a very established and very stable group. And actually, I joined the club in 2001, so and I have been a member of the board in 2003, 2004, and 2005, and now I'm the president-elect. Actually, the point with our club is, I mean, people are very, if you have an 85-year-old club, you know what kind of members you have. And it's very hard to change the way people see and look at a Rotary, especially in the days we are living now, that we really want to change, and that we have to get different kind of members in the club instead of only captains of industries. So that's actually what I'm working now on. I've been talking to older members, but also the younger members in the club, and see if what I'm doing now before I start is doing fireside. I have done two, but I will start with fireside meetings for the whole club at different with groups of like 10, 15 people coming together, talk about the club, talking about what they want with the club, and how we can proceed to see changes in our club, especially how we will get other kind of members in our clubs, like teachers and like people working with in the communities, and how will they, can we help with their dues, because the dues in our club are quite high. So that's also a point that we have to look for, and how to see how we can like maybe give support to people we really want into the club and who can contribute to give us a different point of view what's happening in our community. Because as we have a lot of captains of industry, they have a different look of the community than if you have people working in fields that's really directed to the community. So that's what I'm looking for now. And actually we are quite open, but it's also very hard to, have new members, young members, and especially if you're looking for women in the club. I mean, women of 40 years and a little bit older, they are very much involved in their families. They work, they have kids, they are the one who look after the kids. I mean, the men just say, okay, we go for lunch, but it's the woman who goes to pick up the children at schools. So, I mean, these are very challenges that we have to confront now and see how we are going to deal with that, so we can have like a much more diverse community in our club, but also people are more involved into the community. But actually, that's what I started working on, and see how we can make like a 2-3 years plan to get where we want to be.
Again, my question I would normally start with, what's the size of your club?
We have now 89 members.
89 members. How many clubs?
Yes.
You can probably help me, PDG David or Liz. How many clubs are in Curacao at 7030?
We have like 2 clubs. We have 2 clubs. Actually, we have been sponsored. We sponsored another club. It's Rotary Club of Willemstad, because our clubs were like, at that time, we were like a little bit over the 100 members. And we wanted still to have another Rotary club. So we started the other Rotary club and we sponsored that. So I think they are like about 40 members. Then we have an Interact and we have a Rotaract. So the club is very active and people are very involved. But the point is how we do the turning point of the captains of industry to getting more people who are more involved in the community. Like the Rotary Club of Willemstad, that's smaller. They have more people more based in the community, and they are a little bit more active in the community than we are.
All right, I have another follow-up question, and then I have a thought. The other club that you sponsored, when do they meet? Is it breakfast or lunch or evening? And your club, when do you meet? That's Lyle is going the same place I'm thinking. When do you meet, and when does the other club meet?
We meet on Thursdays. We have a lunch meeting on Thursday, and they have a lunch meeting on Mondays.
Okay.
So, but again, we are doing like we do a lot of things together. Like we have once in the 2 months we have a happy hour that all the clubs come together, and if we have activities, we invite each other over. So that's okay. It's working quite fine.
PDG Lyle is thinking the same way I am. Based on what you're describing, especially if the cost for dues might be a little bit heavy, but you still want to go road and you still want to give back to the community, you could look at, especially with a size of 89, you could look at starting or forming a satellite club. And as a reminder for the president-elects on the call, a satellite club is just a group of persons or Rotarians linked to your club, but they're just meeting at another day and another time. That's it. The plus with that is they might be meeting for happy hour for drinks or for light dinner, and another for breakfast or for dinner, or possibly Saturday mornings for coffee. And oftentimes the due structure would also be a little bit less, because if your club includes the cost for a meal and the satellite club members are meeting somewhere else where you could possibly pay as you go, you would possibly attract more younger professionals. You would definitely possibly attract a teacher or someone who cannot make it out to a lunch meeting because they're teaching, they're at school. You could possibly attract some of the women, additional women in Rotary if you wish to. But again, it's just a group of persons meeting at another day and another time. So the person leading a satellite club, they would not be referred to or called a president. They would just be a chair. So there's a group of just one person leading that group. And once they become members of your club. So once we do a report from Rotary International, say you have 20 members, all of a sudden your club now grows to 109. So again, consider that, because that would be an excellent option for you to attract younger persons and also attract persons of a Rotarian heart that possibly would have a challenge paying that level of dues, per year. So consider that, and we can always share more information on it. So again, PDG, Lila and I are thinking the same way, because based on the size of your club and what you're describing, a satellite club is a good way to look at it. And to start formally a satellite club, you only need 8 members, not as much as 20 to form a brand new club.
Thank you.
I'm glad he's speaking from experience because he did it.
Ah.
He's not talking about it, he did it. So all kudos to him. Yeah. But there's one of the things I wanted to say on that too. I agree with Ali 100%. But also you still have to, I sense obviously that you want to still maintain that original club that you have in its form. And maybe you have to target, you mentioned young women. But I say young women and men because I see them both. Target a group. In other words, don't go to look for one to bring in. Okay, target 6. And when you get 6, bring all 6 together. It will soften the impact both from their personal point of view, and it will also be a major impact to those people who you are not calling by name, but the ones that are impeding the progress of bringing in the younger group that they don't see as their captains of industry, maybe one level down in business from them or something like that. So bring a group, and that will lessen that impact. That's my suggestion to you on that.
Absolutely. Liz?
Are there any more questions from you, or because I know your time is also critical?
Adi, do you have one that you want to?
No, I'd possibly just wrap up with one last one. It just came to me based on what I glanced at. If you were to join your Rotary Club, would you? That's a takeaway to think of. Is it fun? Is it exciting? Are you doing projects? Are you interacting with other clubs? That's just a takeaway thought I wanted to think about. And if not, consider what we've talked about today to make sure that you generate a club experience and environment that you would want to attend and grow.
And anyone wish to take that? Or we've seen,
I've seen some comments there.
To join, yeah, and then back, it was back, yeah. Okay, Larry is saying yes. Yeah, Lisa is saying it reminds me of my Rotaract days, more hands-on, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes. Yep. So I think that, we really had, and I know, Audley, you have something you wish to share. Perhaps at this point you can share it, because I think that's key. Doing a strategic plan, I think a lot of people think it's so complicated, so complex, and that reflective tool I use even in regular organizations, because I always think that strategic planning or having a plan, if you don't have a plan, I always say any road can take you there. So you have to have a plan going forward. It adds structure. So please go ahead and share your.
All right. I have a 2-page document or a 3-page document that you could possibly share, and I'll share it with Liz to share it with the team. It's just some thoughts to put together. You firstly do some kind of a SWOT. You may have heard of that. What your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities are. Look at, opportunities and challenges in the community. What your vision is, what you see the club in the next 5 to 10 years, who is the ideal member, the demographics you want to attract, what's your value proposition, and then how you plan to achieve it. You physically write down some action points and action items. I love this particular document because it also kind of shares around our 4 strategic, goals, which is how do we increase our impact? How do we expand our reach? And again, these are just some boxes and tables that you just kind of fill some information in. How do we enhance participant engagement? And I like this because it let you think about what action items, what resources do I need, who is responsible, who are going to be assigned to take or lead this task, and then put a timeline to it. So, and then that could increase their ability to adapt. So again, I'll share this with Liz, and again, it's not a major 5-page binded document, 3 or 4 pages. It's just to share some thoughts and have those thoughts, ideas, and action points documented. So I'll share them with Liz during the course of today.
Thank you, Audley. Thank you, Audley. I mean, that plan, and I've used that, and it is a very simple plan where you really get to know where you are right now via those surveys or questions or focus group meetings, identifying, certainly recognizing where you want to be in terms of your vision, looking at, indicating what are your priorities, and we're guided by Rotary International, and they have given us, and whatever we do should be aligned with our district as well as Rotary International as well. So identify those priorities and, strike up your goals and, and have your strategies. That little matrix there, I think, work wonders in keeping track of how you're doing, assigning the tasks, ensuring that you have the resources to do what you say you're going to do, and doing it in the time frame that you would like it done. And nothing is cast in stone, because a lot of times we've set those perimeters, and then something happens, and that's fine. But that means that you need to evaluate along the way. You need to monitor and see how you're going. And if you need to tweak it, need to change it, you need change course, that's fine. You can change course. So that's very key. Thank you a lot, Audrey. I'll share that with the team as well. Yeah. So I think we had a great.
Just before you wrap up, I know that's where you're heading, and everyone is so excited to wrap up because we've had fantastic session today, but there are a couple of questions in the chat that I think it would be remiss of us if we didn't cover.
Okay.
The first one is, can you provide any advice with regard to a club starting a corporate member program? I think as Audley was speaking about different club models, this is extremely important.
There are different examples, and I have a wonderful guide to corporate membership where sample bylaws are in it, and then different options. So in essence is you have one membership with one entity, and that one entity would pay the dues, but that particular entity can assign 2 or 3 persons to visit on their behalf. So if you're involved with the chamber, sometimes a chamber of commerce may have something similar where an entity joins the chamber of commerce, and then you may have 1 or 2 reps that visit the meetings. So if you consider it that way, it's relatively similar to that. But I can share that with you as well. And the good thing is you can tweak it to what best suits your club. So I'll share that with Liz as well to share with the wider group.
Great, thanks so much, Audley. And the last question on the books today, what's the easiest way to find online meetings of other clubs?
There was a document that floated around in the earlier part of the pandemic in March or May of 2020. It was an Excel document. A club outside of Australia started it and created it. And they listed their club, their name, when they meet, and the Zoom meeting link information. I need to look for it, and I'll share that with Liz as well. You should be able to find some things on Rotary.org as well, but I'll check. PDG David?
Yeah, Rotary, I was going to say, I think there's some on Rotary.org. But if you're looking within the district, I'm sure that if you just reach out like to the district secretary or something, we can get some of the meeting times and links available. But there are others that many of us get, I guess, in an ad hoc manner that we could share. So feel free. I'm not seeing who it's from, but feel free to reach out to me because I have a few that I can share with you if you want.
Yes, and thank you very much, PDG. And I remember seeing in the chat, I think the Rotary Club of Marval, I don't know why I picked on them earlier, they started a Friends of Marval group. So I find a lot of those meetings when I've joined several different Friends of Rotary Club groups. The meeting links are shared, Liz shares stuff with me all the time, and then we do that vice versa. So we can start building our own little networking group of persons right here. So that's a good way to share information as well, because I may miss stuff that I heard about in South America or India or somewhere, and I'm able to jump in because of those connections and networks. So PDG, David, thank you very much for that.
Yeah. So Les, if you're coming to the end, I just wanted to say from our point of view, and to wrap up from mine, to the PEs, you know, what at the end of all of this, you're going through your lead up and all your planning, and then you have your layer to date, and at the end of the year, what type of leader do you want to be remembered as? What you do from here on in is where you're going to be remembered, and there are many different types. Adi has a nicely prepared little fact sheet that he moves around with for his things. And what do you want to be? A transformational leader, inspiring people, a servant. You can be that if that's your choice. A coaching, focusing on the development of people. Affiliative, you know, highlighting cooperation and harmony in groups. Participative, drawing on people's knowledge and skills. So, you know, all inclusive, as we would call it in the hotel sector, and which Audie would know too. And setting high standards for performance and focusing on the things that we want to do better and faster. So determine for yourself too what you want to be remembered as, and your style of leadership is the one. You can only use your style, but remember that all of those concepts bring together the overall leader. And you, even if you as an individual happen to be what you think is one of those only, you too have to pivot, using that word again. You have to pivot in your leadership too, and become all encompassing, and make sure that it's the club that benefits from your leadership, and not you alone. This is not about us as individuals as much as it is about us as members of clubs, and in the global picture as Rotarians trying to do better and give service. So that's my takeaway, to leave with you, to do what you want others to remember you by as a leader. And this is speaking to the theme of leadership. Lead in the way that you will be remembered for doing good to the club, and expect that you in the future will be called upon to assist the others going forward, to teach them how to be good leaders. So good luck to you all, and we are always here to help you. There's no one size that fits all for any club, of any type of membership, of anything. No one size fits all. You can adapt within what I call, Audie would heard me with this at the membership committee, common sense rules. A little common sense goes a far way, and don't get down to the minutia. If the rule says A plus B only, do what makes sense in your circumstance, and that will always be a good rule to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, PDG David. I know that, well, Audley had his wrap-up thoughts. He shared with us the strategic plan. So thank you so much for those tools. I'm sure that will add to the President's toolkit that we have developed to help to guide them, to use as the year unfolds. Now, PDG David mentioned, and I think it was mentioned in the general discussion, a topic that I think that we will address as we go into the Rotary year in a session, intergenerational gap. I think that is something that needs to be brought to the table. We do have clubs that are older clubs, and we have persons that are seasoned Rotarians. I don't want to say older Rotarians, seasoned Rotarians, that I'm sure can bring to the table quite a few information that the Gen Zs and the millennials can actually use as well. And that example you give, Audley, was fantastic, where you had a younger person making plans, and obviously got a stumbling block, and that older person was able to, or the more seasoned Rotarian was able to help to create that path to make that session a success. So thank you all. At this point, I'd like to ask our District Governor-elect Leslie, that is sitting quietly in the corner there. I'm sure he's taking in everything. And I gotta tell you guys, this District Governor has started his plan since last year, September. he has been planning. He has been on this trail. He was on a trail with PGD Lyle. He's on the trail with DG Sonia. And I know that he doesn't think so, but I think that in 3 months' time, it's going to be his turn. So over to you, PG Leslie, to conclude our session, give the vote of thanks, and we'll close off for the morning. And thank you all for being here and spending the time with us.
Thank you very much, Liz. Indeed, it has been a wonderful, enthralling morning, full of information from our two experts, RMO Audley and PDG David. A lot of information has been delivered this morning. I mean, the interest that was generated, certainly this thing could have gone until well afternoon. That's to tell you how engaged our participants were with the presentations made by Audley and David. Certainly it was highly interactive. That alone is an indication of what kind of information was there. So President-elect, going forward, we look forward to your absorption of all the material that was presented this morning. We look forward to the outcomes, and certainly by the end, when you assume your leadership position from July, we expect that you'll have dynamic impact on how your clubs engage your members and how you go forward from there. You can also look on the Learning Center to go further with, to research the ideas that have been presented this morning. It's a lot of the information is there. I urge you to log on to Learning Center. And this will certainly fortify what has been delivered this morning. I can only see good comment out of this session. And I want to thank RMO Audley and PDG David for the time that they have spent with us this morning. I think it was very worthwhile, very fruitful. We can only benefit from it. Thank you for all the wonderful ideas you have presented, the tips on engaging our members, because in truth and in fact, we must keep our members engaged to retain them. And that is important. It was said that gaining new members is easy, but retaining them is more important, right? And we can only retain them if they are knowledgeable with Rotary information. So you, my fellow leaders, are the ones who must now engage your members and really, really let us keep that bar high. I said before that I have a very high bar to maintain, and please don't let me down. Let us get on with it. So RMO Audley and PDG David, thank you very much for your fantastic presentations. Really, really engaging and encompassing. To our participants, our president-elects, secretary-elects, I've told you what I have to tell you. It's up to you now to take what you have got today, move forward, and let us keep this district humming with activity. To all other participants, our PDGs, our training team, you are so well versed. I thank you, Liz, and your team for really putting on another dynamic program today. Really fantastic. Thank you very much. And of course, I have to always remember District 7030, Mr. Sean P., for keeping us engaged, keeping us in touch, keeping us communicating, keeping the communication going. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful morning, great weekend, and see you next week. Thanks a lot.